Hello, folks. I'm your host, Craig T. Stewart, and I'm here with.
Jeff Mayhew.
Hey, nice hat.
Thank you.
Yeah, I've got one that's not quite as good as that. Says the same thing though. What's the book this month, Jeff?
Journey to the center of the earth.
Courage, comrades, courage! The revolution must continue.
We must not give up. We must keep going.
Wait, who are
What
you?
are we talking about? Harry?
No, no, no. I'm Snowball. Oh, wait, that was last month, wasn't it? This
Oh,
month
it
it
gets like
was courage to the nephew or something like that, right?
you got to keep going, man. Can't
Ah.
let life stop you.
Well, yeah, let's not let life stop us. I wonder what Past Craig had to say about this book. What's the book about? Journey to the Center of the Earth by Jules Verne centers on Professor Otto Lidenbrock, his reluctant nephew Axel, or in the case of some British English books, Harry is the name of his nephew, translation. And it also centers on their hunter guide Hans as they embark on an imaginative scientific expedition to the center of the Earth. After the professor discovers a cryptic message from his savant hero, um, Arne Saknussemm, they plunge into the depths of Snaefell, a volcano in Iceland. Driven by determination to uncover the mysteries below the ground, they face daunting challenges like treacherous terrain, supply scarcity, and prehistoric creatures. The trio marvel at their discoveries of underground seas, human like giants, dinosaurs, and ancient wonders along their journey. Before they know it, the summer ends and a volcano erupts, sending them back to the surface, forever changed by their adventure. Even Axel, the skeptic of the crew, becomes a believer by the end. Now, some of the themes that will come up in the full length podcast, directly or indirectly, are things like science and superstition, what's fact or fiction, scientific progress and imagination, playing a lot on the former, and adventure, perseverance, courage, and the unknown.
So, all right, Craig.
Yeah,
This was different. This was different than the other books that we've read, wasn't it?
yeah. I'd say very different, but also somewhat the same. I would put it more in league with the philosophy books, at least the first half, the first third, with the philosophy books we read, because it's like mathematical and boring.
I that is a funny way to organize something. Because when you said philosophy, I'm like,
Yeah,
it's
well,
not philosophy.
this is
It's not even close to
mathematical.
philosophy. But I get what you're saying with like the the statistics, the geology, the science. It can be a little dry at the beginning. I agree. Picks up. I read this book recently, obviously, and my daughter Julia had read this book a while ago, and I said, "Hey, have you read this book?" And she's like, "Yeah." And I was like, "Did you like it?" And at this stage, I was like 145 pages into the book. And in my mind, I'm thinking, good God, it's 145 pages of nothing so far. And I still have 200 pages left. Where are we going? I mean, clearly we're going to the center of the earth, but are we ever going to get there?
It is deceptively long for such a thin book that I have.
See, I had to,
Oh yeah, you've got the
life,
fancy edition.
well, I was the only life had got me distracted and I forgot to read the book. And I ordered the book because I thought I had the book again. And then I went to the store and this was the only copy they had. And I was like, man, do you have another copy that's, I don't know, cheaper? Because this is really fancy and expensive. They were like, no, this is the only one we've got.
Yeah,
But,
I got the Dover thrift edition, like the mass market one. Like I don't really care. I just want the book, please, because I thought I had it, and it's like the only one for this season that I didn't buy in advance.
mm,
But it's also the only book that I couldn't push myself to finish until the day before we had originally planned to do this. And I don't for an 8-hour book on Audible, it's like it took way too long. It took like a week and a half for me to read it. And
mm.
I don't know if it's just everything going on with my day job or if it was just like that first third is just it's not what I was expecting.
Yeah. Well, so to be honest, I'm not sure what I was expecting. I read the child's version when I was a kid. I was very inspired by Jules Verne. I was a very adventurous child. We lived out, with land, and I like to just explore, when I was a kid. And my dad had bought me those children versions of all of these famous books, and one of them was Journey to the Center of the Earth. But it was probably only 100 pages, and it had a lot more pictures. It was an abbreviated version, so I had never read the real version before.
Yeah, I think the pictures. I think this one. I don't think it had any. No, it didn't.
So
The
mine did, and I
pictures would
actually
actually make it go a lot further. I think.
the pictures I thought were fantastic in the book that I got, and I don't the way that they're described, it says plate 39. Are they I don't know, are they original to the original book? I meant to do some research on that because I thought that it was quite, because even in the table of contents, it has a list of the plates, with all the pictures, and I thought it definitely brought some depth to the book, to help, because we all get visions of what we see when we read a book like this. And I think similar to like the way I described the Ender's Game, where I had watched the movie and therefore like the visuals in my head were probably more accurate to what was going on.
Hmm.
Kind of same thing here. I had a better understanding of what the author was trying to convey. Um, he does a great job, I think, describing the events. He as a writer, I mad respect for the story that he's crafted and for the visuals that he creates in your mind with words. I think that I felt this book was a mixture of Moby Dick and Don Quixote. Okay. Now follow me here for a minute. The Moby Dick part is the dryness or the intricacies of geology and science that he goes into. And the Don Quixote part is this, you know, adventure that has these just incredible obstacles that continue to be overcome and moved on, right? Like Harry, the main character, he's, like, near death all the time, right? Like, he's constantly dying and being saved by Hans, and it kinda reminds me of Don Quixote, like, this guy that's constantly, like, has these, trials and things to get over. It's different, obviously, but, I found it similar.
Harry.
Just the 3 of them in general. I'm using Harry as example because he's the one that's, the main character, he's the narrator, and
You
he's the
mean
one that
Axel?
Axel?
Isn't
What are we t
isn't that his name?
Harry? Am I mistaken here?
That
Are we
there's Lidenbrock, and he talks to his nephew Axel, and they've also got Hans.
His nephew's name is Harry.
Harry doesn't come up in my book. And
I
I
was
just did a quick Google to make sure that I'm not crazy. Axel Lidenbrock, Professor Otto Lidenbrock, Hans Bejuke, Arn Saknussemm, and Martha. And obviously Miss Gruben. But yeah, I it must just be a translation thing.
very strange.
Huh. Interesting. And here I thought it was because you watched the movie or something, because the movie changed a lot of things. It also cut out a lot of the boring stuff in the beginning, which I was happy about. It, it was it was very well written. Um, it's just they changed way too many things and they made it more kid friendly. And I'm like, I'm gonna stop watching this and go do something else. This wasn't.
I
I was hoping that it would like give me the oomph to go. I actually kind of like this book now. It made me appreciate the book a lot more, especially the second half of the book, because like to your earlier point, Jules Verne does a very good job of describing this imaginative thing that he's created, and
Mhm.
is well written. Definitely
Yeah,
lessons to be learned there for me as a writer.
Oh, man, as a writer, man, this might be one of the best books written. Like, maybe the story's not the way, maybe it doesn't resonate with me that some of the other books resonate because it's not as enjoyable, but, like like you said, the way that he writes such complex things in such a simple way to give such deep, you know, visualization to it,
Mhm.
is such it's, as a writer, it's something that you admire because it's like, I want to do that. I wanna make people, like, be able to read stuff like this. So,
I guess, like, one of the things that, in the first third of the book I noticed, and I, like, did some fact checking on it along the way, like, to your point to Moby Dick, like, there's quite a few things in here that actually are true, and they're weird things that you wouldn't necessarily think of to look at, like the literary society founded by Arni in 1816 in Iceland. That's a real thing.
yeah,
They really did that. Now, maybe it's exaggerated in the book a little bit, but that really happened. And I'm like,
yeah.
"Oh, I didn't know that." I couldn't believe that. Obviously, the geology stuff rings true, and it kinda gave me a little bit of a vibe about the book I've talked about before, like the granddaddy of dystopian books, the We by, Zamyatin, which is like a mathematical society. So there's a lot of that dry mathematical stuff and formulas in there, but it's also a very imaginative book that dives into how society is structured. So there's a way to combine the dry with the entertaining, right?
Well, I think the entertaining is people, right? Like, in all of our books, the entertaining is people, what they want, how they get it, and all that stuff, and this book really isn't about that. This book is about the Earth, okay? This book is about the unknown and, you know, having some senses of adventure, hope, perseverance, all of those different things, but at the core, it's really about the Earth, okay? This is something that Jules Verne was kind of fascinated by, and the sense of exploration that's in there, I think, is kind of the people. It's the thing that keeps you tied to the story, um, but overall, I think Jules Verne is like, there's a lot of stuff we don't know. And I want to spark interest in this. I want people thinking about this. So I'm going to write because it reads now. Imagine if you were born. What was this book written? 1868, 1865? No, not 1869. Anyways, I think it was sometime in
76.
76. Okay. So, like, at this period of time, if you get this book, it's possible, depending on where you are and what you know about the world around you, that you read this book and think that it's real,
Some of it, yeah.
because like you said, there is a lot of real information in there. And it's written in a way where it makes it sound like it's an actual diary, that somebody had written. And yeah, I just think it's a very clever way to inspire people because now you get people searching for this thing because they believe something is there that may not actually be there, but in return, they probably end up finding
Yeah.
things, right?
That is something that I thought of as well, in the first third of the book that I didn't actually remember when I was writing up the document. It The mixture of fiction and fact makes it hard to tell which things are fiction versus fact. Uh, some of it I think is kind of clear as day, such as, I don't know, walking down a volcano or coming out of a volcano. Like these things just are super unrealistic. I'm not gonna say it's not possible.
Well, but I thought that as well, but if you place yourself in the moment with limited information and you've already seen things that you didn't think were possible, like
Yeah.
if it's
Well,
1867 76, like, you now has electricity been a thing yet? I can't
they
remember
were
what year.
messing around with it. I think the
There's a lot
telegraph
of
was a thing.
technology
Uh,
and stuff that
Engines,
happens. Yeah, engines.
intercontinental rail. That was at the advent of all of this awesome stuff that capitalism actually created. That was good. Also industrialized warfare, but, that's a different topic. That's a different book. Um, but that's the part that kind of bothers me about Professor Lidenbrock, actually. It's well, we know these things to be true. And Axel goes, or Harry, whichever, knows these things to be true. And Axel has a more of how we would view the center of the earth, and how all of that theory works. Professor Lidenbrock has a different aspect to it. And he's kind of demeaning to Axel along the journey. And he's like, basically appealing to authority. I'm the professor. I have the data. Like, constantly going against what Axel's saying. And he keeps being right often enough and able to change his hypothesis often enough that by the end, Axel becomes a believer, partly because of what he's seeing. Like, when you go down and see an underground ocean that's lit up, that you have giants walking around, you've got dinosaurs types of stuff going around. It's like, you kind of have to start believing that Professor Lidenbrock is more right than wrong.
Well, it again, that's the part that kinda reminds me of Don Quixote, right? Like, this, "Hey, everything's gonna be alright. We're gonna keep going. Like, we are going to take those windmills down," right? Because it kinda seems like they're chasing windmills at a point. It's just this wacky adventure of where things keep on happening, and Harry or Axel, whatever you wanna call him, keeps on ending up, like, near death's door. They keep on finding crazier things. Crazier and crazy things keep happening to keep them alive. Like, and again, this was one of my favorite parts about the book was the you kind of felt like Jules Verne did such a great job describing the environment. You felt like you were in the environment. Like that part of the book where they were on the ocean, where there's he describes this noise that's like deafening, and this light, this strobing light, and I could just imagine, like, they're there for, like, 24 hours in this thing or more, it seemed like, and it just I don't know, it was really descriptive, I really felt like I was there, and you have to be kinda crazy to keep going, don't you? Like, to keep believing that things are gonna be okay, and that's kinda what Don Quixote is, he's a little crazy, and that's kinda what the professor is, he's crazy as far as I can tell.
Yeah. Well, and I kind of joked about it at the beginning, courage, comrades, courage, but that is something that comes up. Like, where's your courage? Especially in the face of crucial moments where you're running out of water or provisions. It's like you have to have some courage that you're going to keep moving on and actually find what you're looking for. Otherwise, you're going to feel defeated and become defeated. And it's that courage in the face of great discoveries, really.
I think you hit on, like, kind of the best point, like, what's the point of the book? What does it teach you? I think that is the thing it teaches you most, is Harry is constantly discouraged to the point where he's ready to give up, and then something happens, what I would call it is it's a win, right? Like, if you're working on a large project or doing anything in your life, you want to feel like you've moved forward. If you feel like you're failing constantly, you might rethink what you're doing and go, "Maybe I'm just doing the wrong thing. I should do something different." But he fails and fails and fails and fails, and then there's a win. And that win is enough for him to be like, "Let's keep going." I was ready to give up. I was on death's door. I was dehydrated. My mouth was so parched with water and just one little drip of water. And now I'm ready to go. I believe again and I can keep going. And it's really that hope that drives people to be able to accomplish big and difficult things. And I kind of think Jules Verne not only does a great job of painting a picture of the story that they go, but also like diving into that piece of what it really takes to be an explorer and go out into the unknown and survive.
Yeah. And there's a great callback, and I don't remember if it's true or not, where the professor talks about how Columbus and his crew got together a couple days before they ended up discovering the New World. And he's like, listen, here's the situation. I say we keep going because I know we're close.
Mhm.
And they decide to keep going. And that's a common theme throughout history with, boats especially. It's like, "Okay, we're running out of resources. Where's the closest land, or do we wanna keep going?" It doesn't matter which way we go, we may die either way, so why not go for, greatness? And it
Right.
ends up working out very well for 'em. Um, I think the Gama, when they went around their world, they had that similar thing of, like, people were dying around them, they didn't have resources, and they just kept going because they had that courage, that strength of will to succeed, to make it worth it in the end.
Magellan went
Was it
around the
Magellan,
world.
not Da Gama?
DeSoto is the one that discovered South America? I'm
What
a
did
little
Gama
rusty.
do? Vasco da
I see, I'm
Gama.
not. Oh, Vasco da Gama, okay. Yeah, maybe.
He
Let's
he
see.
he did something, he was Portuguese.
I know he did something. What did all these
Oh,
people
he
do?
he's one that went around, Africa.
Went around Africa,
Yeah.
okay. Yeah, trade routes. Um, yeah, no, I mean, I agree, he does pull off of that, and I think Verne is it's very clear that he's read about America and the westward expansion. He even mentions it somewhere in the book. I unfortunately didn't mark it, but he mentioned something about American expansion in the book. And I had already thought as I was reading it, I was like, this guy's clearly read about American expansion because this story of like these new monsters, these new trees, it was very much like the story of like Lewis and Clark going west, right? And discovering all of this new stuff. Um, and I'm sure that when they wrote about it, which now I kinda wanna go and read more about Lewis and Clark, I bet you it kinda seemed big and scary like the way that it's written about it in Jules Verne's book here.
Oh, it definitely is. From what little I've read, whether it's in school or, on the side, because, like, you're just a couple dudes going west with all these random Native Americans and all these things you've never seen before, trying to map it out and find the coast. It
Mhm.
I mean, we know the Oregon Trail was, like, to use a modern word, sketchy, to say the least. Like, I couldn't imagine what they had to do.
Well, I mean, we can read the Donner story.
Yep, or play Oregon Trail and die of dysentery.
Oh, man, I know we're gonna get like, don't bring up Oregon Trail. You remember, like, that was such a great game. I remember 2nd grade sitting there with my little Mac computer.
Doesn't matter what you do, you die of dysentery.
I think that was the lesson.
Lesson is you died of dysentery in the 19th century.
Well, I mean, but that is very different, and think about it in context. I don't like, we don't have great explorers anymore. Like, Elon
Yet.
Musk might be our only great explorer left, right? Like, he's the only one that seems I mean, although Bezos has also tried to do it, like, trying to explore something new and different, and everybody else seems kinda content.
Well, the
Um,
technology's not there, right? Like when Christopher Columbus went to sail the ocean blue in 1492 or whenever, they had the technology. They know they could sail on the open sea. They knew with the resources they had, they could go X amount of days. They just didn't know what they were going to find on the other end. We don't have the technology to just put a whole bunch of people in a spaceship and actually get it to Mars. Once that technology exists, the great explorers are going to come out of the woodwork, whether they're the Elon Musk or the Jeff Mayhews or whomever's. No,
I'm not that type of explorer.
you don't want
Not
to
at
go to
this stage of
Mars.
my life. Not at this well, no, I do wanna go to Mars, but I wanna go to Mars after it's been practiced and tried and is good. Like, I wanna go on a vacation trip. Like, I'm gonna go visit California after the gold has been found, okay? Like, I'm too old for that part of my life. All right. Like, I'm just being real. Like, I have too many responsibilities. I want to grow up and see my kids get married at this stage. If I was 27, maybe it'd be a different story. 27 with no kids, different story. But 39 with 5 kids, and, they're already at age where some of them are already could get married any day now, are old enough. And I don't see a point at this point in my life, but I want people to explore. And I think you make a very good point. The technology's not there, and that's why we don't have any explorers because we have to explore further than we've ever had to explore before in order to actually find something new, and we have to go into a environment that is more hospitable than anything that can be found on Earth, and that is a big difference, being able to protect and control your environment to keep safe while exploring, which is essentially what, the early explorers did. They control their environment with bringing provisions along on the boats and everything, shelter, building shelter as they go along. It's the same thing, it's just more difficult now.
At the moment.
Right, at the
It,
moment,
it'll
I
become
hey,
old hat soon.
that's the way I look at it. Technology continues to move forward whether we want it to or not, and it's kinda silly to think that we are at the end of technology.
Just like in space travel, though, there's a correlation to this book, and it's all the mathematics, all the science, and there's if I would call it a standout line, it would probably be this one. Um, it's in chapter XXV. What is that? 25. I hope that's 25. Uh,
Yes.
and it's where Lenbrock says, then professors are out in the reckoning by 1,474 and 4/10%, or just 4/10. There's no percent there. Then the proportional increase of temperature is a mistake. And Humphrey Davy was right. And so was I to listen to him. What do you say to it now? And I'm sitting here going, what does philosophy have to do with math and temperature? But you also have to kind of think like at the time, the the 1800s was a time period where there's all this new scientific discovery and things were being challenged and ideas were being brought about and tested. There's a lot of mixture of social society of the liberal arts with the STEM fields and a lot of things to figure out what comes out of it. Like psychology was becoming its own thing. Um, Philosophy was really coming into its own in a digestible way for the masses in this time period as well as all
Mm.
of these scientific discoveries were. And so I could understand where the mixture of these things, especially someone in Europe near Germany, where 1800s Germany was rife with philosophy and ideas and industrialization.
So you're saying Jules Verne being near Germany
Yes,
because he was from France, right?
something like that. But
Okay, I'm just making
yeah,
sure I
yeah, yeah.
understand.
Yeah, well, he was from Europe, and
Yeah,
Germany plays a role here, but France also plays a role. Anyone that was industrializing in the time period plays a role. But
yeah.
it was just an interesting phrase to me that if you sit and think about it a little bit, it does make a lot more sense when you put yourself in the shoes of someone in the 1860s or the 1870s. Um, let alone when was this book written for like the 1860s? I know it came out in
It
the 70s, but what was the time period for the book exactly? When it
Oh, like when
when the
the book
story
was
took
written?
place?
Like when the story took place? I don't know.
Oh, no, 1863. So it was like 15
1860.
years
Yeah.
before it was written or published. It was probably when he started
Cool.
writing it.
Which also, by the way, feeds into what we talked about earlier of it seems like it's a real story at parts,
Mhm.
and being published so quickly after the events taking place, you know?
Yep. I I think that's another parallel to Moby Dick. Now
Yeah.
now that it's like said and I think about it a moment, because Moby Dick does that as well. Yes, it's more of an allegorical thing with Moby Dick, but there's a lot of explanation on how America existed and was operating at that time. Same is true with this book in Europe, I think, especially when it comes to the sciences and basically any college degree from Europe, which, huh,
Yeah, no, that's interesting. I, I got nothing. I had something. It lost it. Where'd it go? It's deep down underneath the cavern. So, all right, let's pull it back a little bit. We've talked a little bit about like what we like about the book. We both agree that this is wonderfully written. It's descriptive. It tells an interesting story. It can be a little dry, and there's lots of interesting information in it. What part of the story did you enjoy the most? Which one were you like sitting on the edge of your seat like in the movie theater? Because that's kinda how I felt when I was reading this book at parts. Was there any part like that that stood out for you?
The descent, I think, is the part that kept my attention the most
Hmm,
because I went and listened to the last third of the book in the last day or so, and it's like, I'm not sure I actually remember some of this because I was just checked out by that point.
mm,
And the first part of the book, like I said, it's like, this isn't I've got a lot of negative stuff to say about the first part, um,
yeah.
such as it could be summarized or a flashback. There's like 15 to 20 chapters that we didn't need. Basically, getting to Iceland could have been one chapter or a
Yeah,
prologue in a chapter or some combination thereof.
I agree with you, except I think if you did that, it would take away what we just were talking about. It wouldn't feel as real, right? Because if it's somebody's diary, it needs to be belaborious. It needs to be monotonous about the things that's going on because that's what a diary is. That's what a journal is. And
That's
so, like,
fair.
I just I can't find a way for him to get around that problem in the book because I agree it is a huge problem. Like I said, 150 pages in, I didn't want to keep reading. And I ended up finishing the book and loving it, not expecting to have loved it. And so, but as I reflect and I think what makes this book really great, it is one of those things that makes this book really great. Even though I know it's fake and even though I know it was a really long period of time, I can put myself in that moment and go, hey, I think somebody would have thought this. And I think that's pretty unique and cool. And I respect that as a writer.
Yeah.
I thought my favorite parts were him describing being lost, um, Axel or Harry, right? And being found by Hans and the professor, the way that the cavern,
Yeah.
the
That part was very
the
interesting where
sound
the sound
reflects
was reverberating and they would count 20 seconds, 20 seconds so they could tell the distance.
right. And again, there's a lot of science there that's real. That that Jules Verne obviously was a learned man and took this stuff very seriously. The other part, and I think I mentioned it already, was the part when they're on the raft, and like to me, it sounds so excruciatingly torturous. Just to be able to survive that, like, is insane to me. Um, yeah, I really like those two parts. I guess the part that seems most unreal to me, besides the monsters and the stuff that's obviously not real,
That you
was
know of.
well, it's true. It's true.
Mushroom trees could be a thing.
I absolutely believe they could be a thing. I just don't think that they are. Um, I would say it's the fact that they had stuff. Like, when I'm reading this, it doesn't sound like they're carrying a lot, right? But they have a lot of stuff. They're there for a really long period of time, and they have to find water along their way, but they somehow have enough food to last. Like, how
June,
long is this
July,
journey?
August.
How did they carry that much food and ladders and pickaxes? And towards the end, I got a little tripped up here because I believe it's a dream sequence, but he gets Harry is like fantasizing or dreaming about something that's happened, and in the dream, he's given milk to drink. And in my thought, I'm like, "How do they have milk?" Like, they were completely out of water, dying of dehydration, they didn't drink their milk already? And then, like, I believe he woke up from the dream, and I'm
Yeah.
like, "Oh, okay, this
It
makes more
was
sense now."
fantasizing a nice cup of milk.
But they still had food after that.
Well,
And still to my point is, like, at some point, they would have had to run out of food.
yes. You can pack a lot of dried provisions. It's just heavy
Yeah.
across 3 people. Now, the amount of food Like, towards the end, they had, like, a pound left or something like that. That seemed a little much, but you can pack a lot of food that carries enough calories to get you through. I I don't know, that's the author's hand wave, the magic wand there a little bit, if you ask me.
Well, and you need one when you're writing a story like this, right? Like, you're gonna need a couple. I'm sure there's more than one in the book, I'm pointing out one, but
Yeah.
I think, yeah.
I One of the other things that I found interesting was, towards the end of the book, after all the beratement that, the nephew got, uh, by the end, he becomes a believer, at least in some part, because he asked his uncle, "What did Zach Newsom do?" When
He
his
was a
uncle seemed
believer
to
the whole
have
time.
lost, like, that hope, that faith a little bit, and it's the nephew that's like, "Well, what would Zach Newsom do? Or what did he do?" And the uncle's like, "You're right. What did he do?"
Well, I think this goes on to and I this is people, right? Like, we talk about this book is about the earth. It's not as much about people, but there is a people story here, and Harry and the professor are two different types of people. All right. Harry is somebody who believes in what he sees, and the professor believes in what he can imagine. And he is accepting of reality and the rules of natural law as they exist, but he believes that there are things that he doesn't know that can exist, and therefore he believes that anything really can happen and exist. And the story of the two of them where he is painting this picture. He is the author. Even though Harry's the narrator, the professor is the author. He's painting the picture for Harry to follow along, and Harry is telling the story of what he sees. But the professor is the one that foretells the story, right? He's the one that makes Harry believe, and Harry is the pessimist. He doesn't believe over and over and over again, but he's proven wrong over and over and over again. And even though the professor is also wrong, he is right sometimes, and just enough times
Just
to keep him
enough.
going off, right? And that is what it takes to be a great leader, is to be able to, you know, understand reality as it is, but believe that it can be more and different than it is because there's something that you don't know. And to be into pursuit of that thing that you don't know, and to be able to share it with others to bring them along with you because you know that you can't do it alone. And that's something that is so unique and almost lost in life nowadays. There just aren't enough people that think and act that way because the people like Axel or Harry, whatever we're going to call them, I think they're too numerous. They're like, "Well, you can't do that." And they cut those dreamers down at the knees and they go, "Well, you're right." Right? But the other way around, when the dreamer leads and the pessimist follows, the pessimist ultimately becomes a dreamer as well because their mind is changed when they see all these remarkable things happen over time. And when the dreamer gets down, they almost feel guilty, probably. I bet you Harry felt guilty. He felt bad. He's like, man, I've been such a negative on this trip. And yes, it's been hard, but man, we have done something great that almost nobody has ever done or ever will do. And it's all because of my professor, my uncle, who believed this thing that I didn't believe. And now he wants to give up. I can't let him give up. Now it's about feeding into him. And I think overall, like, the people part of that story that Jules Verne wrote, even though it's really about the earth,
Mhm.
was fantastic. It's about perseverance, it's about determination, it's about character, it's about a lot of different things.
Yeah. That was a good summary. I can't do better. Uh, I guess folks listening and or watching, do you agree with that assessment? Disagree? Let us know in the comments, and make sure to tag at Jeff Mayhew if it's on Substack.
I bet you there's a lot of people out there that have read this book, and I really, really would love to hear from people on this because I think this is a book. It is, I think it's something that really could inspire people if people picked it up and read it today. Um, and I would also be curious, just for our show, this was part of a series. And did you notice that he kind of hinted at the other books in the series? He hinted at 80. Around the World in 80 Days. He hinted at 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, right?
I didn't know those were all connected.
I believe that they are. I know that those are Jules Verne's books, and I
I,
believe that he wrote them as a series of inspiration. Like Jules Verne was intentional about inspiring explorers, if I'm not mistaken, from my little bit of research I
sure.
did. Um, and I believe that there was a series of books. This was one of them, Around the World in 80 Days and 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, were all kind of tied together in this like universe. It's like it's so far ahead of its time as far as the book of like it's like a modern day like trilogy, right? Like with these different now, I think there are different characters in each one of these books. I haven't read the other two. I'll have to put it on our list and read, but I know that my daughter has, and she made it sound like they were kind of interconnected in some way as well.
Yeah. Uh, if there's one thing I've learned is once you start writing a series as an author and you go to do something else, you're going to make connections, even if it's like subconscious and by accident or very much on purpose,
Yeah.
whether they're in the same
I
world or not. That there's always a rhyming scheme in there somewhere, going from one to the other.
Yeah. I've never written anything like that, but I can imagine from my experience as a writer that if I were to do something like that, I kinda would find myself in that position.
Yeah. It, yeah. The issue is when you start doing it intentionally and then you go, well, I need to get all this sorted out before I can actually publish either book. Then you have an issue because that's where I am on quite a few things that I've been working on. But journey to the authorship. I'm sorry, to the center of the earth. Yes,
To the center of
that
the earth.
that's the book.
Yeah.
So yeah, overall, bit slow start, good end.
I love I love the book. Like, I really did. I would read this book again.
Uh,
Like, I know that sounds a little crazy after, the first 100 and I would read the first 150 pages again. I bet you there's something in there that I glazed over that makes the book better. I bet you there is. After reading the second half of the book and seeing how fantastic it was, I know I didn't give the first part of the book enough time or enough credit,
yeah,
and I probably need to go back and reread it.
yeah. This is one of those books that was definitely a struggle. I don't normally do not finish a book. There's a few that I'll just put on the shelf for a long time and then go back and finish. But it's like I'm not. I'm going to finish it. It's just it's about a lawyer. I can't think about that right now, kind of a thing. This is one of those that somewhere down the road, I'm probably going to reread it or at least re-listen to it and go, yeah, it's better than I was thinking. I was just in a bad mood or whatever when I was reading it, which
Yeah.
June was tough for me. So maybe that's part of it too. And
Yeah.
I was reading other books alongside of it while listening to other books that were um, more interesting, at least in that first half.
I was gonna say this book was very interesting,
The
though.
second
Like, it
half, this
was
definitely took priority. Also,
yeah.
I was running up on the deadline.
And I can see this, like, and it's we already mentioned there is a movie, which I wanna go watch now,
It,
but I could see this being like a television series, like a
I
television
think
series
there
that
might
almost
have
never
been.
ends, where they're constantly journeying to the center of the earth and they never actually make it there. Like, I could see that as a series.
Yeah, where they're just constantly finding something new, something new, something new, and they keep going around and they just
Yeah.
find enough resources to keep going.
Or yeah, like, they find the resources along the way, they eat some of those animals that they find, instead of being chased out.
So there was a one season of a show written aired 1967 to 1969.
Hmm.
So it was one of those older ones, and it was probably it looks to be cartoon. The one that came out, what was it 2008 or 2006? It has Brendan Fraser in it. I'm like, oh, this ought to be good. But it was very much like more written as like a theme park ride type of thing. And they also modernized it in ways that it's like, I see what you're doing here, and it's taking away the spirit of the actual book. Because the professor kind of gets demeaned, kind of like he demeans Axel in the book. That happens to him by Hans, which is it's a woman, and I forget what they named her, but um, it's a woman instead. It's the like son. I'm sorry, it's the daughter of the person they were going to meet instead of just being some random explorer. But they
Yeah.
keep that like tough guy attitude, and it's like, man, I don't know. Some of this is more of a stretch.
Well, I think I'm gonna go watch the movie. I'll probably watch it with my kids. Eh, I think there's such a temptation when you are remaking something to make it your own and to make it different because the audience wants something new.
Yeah,
But like I just don't believe that. The audience doesn't want something new if they're watching something that is old. They want the original version. Most people have not read this book. They're watching the movie because they're like, I've always heard about this book and I want to read the book and I don't have time to read the book and I'd love to watch the movie. And then they watch the movie and they think like, well, this kind of sucked. That book must suck. And it's like, well, actually, the director changed a lot of things and kinda made the movie suck, and the book is actually brilliant. You should
yeah.
pick the book up.
The Hobbit is a great example of that because most of the movie stuff isn't actually in the book. Lord of the Rings, they cut a lot of stuff from the books out, which is weird. But that's one that comes to mind. But I do agree that there's a certain liberty. I think actually a good example of how this can be done well, even with its flaws, would be Ayn Rand's Atlas Shrugged. The Rand Foundation, I think the Libertarian Party, I think there's a group of people, they got together and they did 3 movies. The issue is the contracts and getting the actors and actresses re-signed. So that was an issue going from one movie to the other because of how long it took to produce. But they modernized it. They basically put it in like call it the 2050s, where everyone moved back to rail being the best mode of transportation, so that the book would actually tie directly into the modern era, with all the new fancy technology, as well as the technology that was invented by Ayn Rand to make the uh, spoilers, to make the stuff happen that I'm not going to talk about until you read the book.
I know, I need to read that book.
It's such a long
Um,
book, but it is such a good book.
yeah,
But like that's an example of taking creative liberty while also doing the source material justice and making it approachable by a new audience that's 80, 90 years down the line.
yeah. Alright. What are we reading next, Craig?
Book number 3, actually, of Ender's Shadow. So this would be Shadow Puppets.
Oh, man, I am so excited to
Yep.
read this. This
My
is gonna be awesome.
my mother's actually reading it right now, and I was talking to her, and she's like, "These things happen," and I'm like, "No, that's later in the series." It's like, "No, the series was only ever 5, 6 books. I thought it was like book 4 or 5 or 6," and it's like, "No, this is book 3." I'm like, "Oh."
Ooh.
It's been a while since I read these books, apparently.
Ooh, I am excited, I am excited. So Shadow Puppets, you said?
Yes, it should be book number 3.
Shadow Puppets. All right, so for our sci-fi fans out there, you're really going to want to tune in next month because if you've been following along with the Ender's Game saga, it's fantastic. I've bragged about Journey to the Center of the Earth and the way that Jules Verne writes, but if you've listened to any of the other podcasts, you also know I'm a huge fan of Orson
Scott
Scott
Card.
Card.
Yes. OSC.
I can't say his name right, but I am a huge fan of the way that man writes. And I love the stories that he has crafted and the environments that he's crafted in these books. And I'm really excited to read this one.
Till next time.
Until next time, peace and love.
Love and peace.
Well, that's all we have for now. Let us know in the comments what stuck out the most to you. We'd love to hear from you.
And for those tuning in on Spotify and Substack, please like and share.
For those on YouTube, kindly give us a thumbs up.
And you can check out the Substack version of this podcast for older episodes and future books we're looking at reading together. And you can find all links for What the Book at craigtstewart.com. With all that said, have a good one, folks.
Peace and love.